Welcome to Small Talk. My name's Jenny Dowding. We're familiar with the tendency of news media to highlight places of concern when things seem to be at their worst. And then just as suddenly they move on to the latest disaster or conflict, and the previous situation just disappears out of the headlines. There are probably places that are of special interest to you where you've seen this happen. For example, for me, there's a piece of my heart in Palestine. Recently, the violence in Israel, Gaza and the West Bank was daily on our TV screens and in our newspapers. However, as soon as there was a kind of ceasefire, media interest went somewhere else. Sometimes in regions of conflict, the word peace is bandied about as soon as the immediate violence subsides. But we know that peace is so much more than the absence of armed violence. The old Hebrew word that we usually translate as peace is the word shalom. When I hear this word, I'm reminded of Jim, who was the first person who opened up to me the breadth of meaning of this word. Since then, I've read whole books about the word shalom and all that it encapsulates. Jim explained that this beautiful Hebrew word comes from a verb to bring to completeness or to make whole. And it speaks of a totally integrated life with health of body, mind and heart, attuned to nature, open to others, in joy with God, of sharing and mutuality and love. And it speaks of justice and freedom. Another description says, Shalom is the hope of the prophets, enemies reconciled, injustices righted, hurts healed, fears calmed, and community prosperity. Shalom is the Bible's word for peace, and peace is at the heart of the gospel. God's mission is to bring the whole of creation into harmony, into shalom. Peace with God, peace between the nations, peace with the created order. So the absence of armed conflict in the many places that have appeared in our news headlines doesn't necessarily mean that there is peace. In the Holy Land, there are decades of massive injustices and abuses of power to put right before we can begin to see peace. Speaking recently, one of my favourite Christian Palestinian non-violent activists, Sami Awad, said that his dream of shalom, in effect, is for human rights for everyone who lives in the land we call holy. Our culture is currently wrestling with systemic brokenness all around us, whether we're talking about the systems that have perpetuated racism or sexual abuse or economic poverty, or the oppression with violence of many peoples around the world, and the exploitation of the earth itself. The letters written to the early Christians are full of peace, of shalom, and declare, for Christ himself is our peace. In another place, a contemporary translation says of Christ, all the broken and dislocated pieces of the universe, people and things, animals and atoms, get properly fixed and fit together in vibrant harmonies, all because of Christ's death, his blood that poured down from the cross. And in another place, God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ and has entrusted this mission to us. Unlike the way we often use our word peace, shalom is not a passive word, it's an action word. Followers of Jesus, the Prince of Shalom, are invited to work with God in this peacemaking mission, to be shalom activists. Each one of us, by God's grace, is allowed to play a part in making the world a better place, bringing shalom where there is brokenness. I wonder, how is God calling you to make shalom in the world today? May the shalom of God be with you.